I think we should get started. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce the speaker today, which is a long-term friend and opponent, I would like to say. Ruxandra is director of the Health Directorate at DG Research, and she has a number of degrees. I don't want to mention them, but eventually she ended up at Baylor College in Houston as faculty, and then jumped to the private sector where you worked with DNA vaccines for some years, quite some years actually, and published a lot of publications. And sorry to say, but your age index actually just beat mine. You know. Anyway, I met Ruxandra the first time in 2009, and as chairman of the industry side of the IMI undertaking, and realized that if that was going to fly, we needed to collaborate rather than fight. So I invited Ruxandra for dinner back then, and discussed how we should actually collaborate in a fruitful way. And I think after that evening, we decided on a way to work in this undertaking, and I think, Ruxandra, in all fairness, that was fairly successful. And I'm also happy that you accepted to come here today and tell us a little bit about next steps in Horizon 2020, and maybe also give us some positive feedback on how Denmark fare in Horizon 2020 so far. So, please.
I see that I just turned it off. No. So first, thank you very much, Peter, for the invitation and for the kind words. I still regret that you're not anymore the chairman of the RDG in IMI. It was really a very constructive period. So, you know, all opportunities to work together are really wonderful. So today I'm going to present to you our strategy at the European level on health research, looking at our collaborative research at the public-private partnership, so at IMI, what has been done and where we are today. At EDCTP, so the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trial Partnership, our public-public partnership with the member states, and some words on the global cooperation. So all will be about how to better cooperate, and obviously with the goal of funding your institutions or enterprises, but really adding value at the European level. So first, the good news. I will start with the results of Denmark in our previous framework program and how it fares to date in Horizon 2020. Then the priorities for Horizon 2020 in the next calls. So you all know about the past, so you don't need to be reminded. But 2016, 2017, there are very many exciting possibilities, and I will describe them. These elements of global cooperation and how you can tap into those funding, and then the public investment, which is leveraging the private investment. For those who are not really familiar with the new funding instruments, I'm talking about President Juncker's package of investment, and how is not a means to take money away from research, but in fact to foster a very different type of research and innovation agenda. And then what is next? And I hope that you will have lots of questions for me. So, if we are looking at the entire portfolio of European health research, all is about connecting researchers, and we have actually amused ourselves to see how these collaborations are done. And you can see here that, in fact, Denmark does very, very well. And if you're looking at where those collaborations are and connections with the various countries, and here are data from FP7 because we have all the perspective of the various years of investment, you will see that in fact very, very many connections, more than 5,000 collaborations between universities and private entities here and in the 28 European countries and associated countries, with the most of the collaboration with UK researchers, followed by Germany, France, the Netherlands, and so on and so forth. And if you are looking at the top 20 regions collaborating within our health framework program, you will see that in fact the Copenhagen region fares the 8th out of 248 regions. So a really vibrant community you are, and we would like to keep it like that. So if you're looking at the top 10 organizations in Denmark, you will see that the Copenhagen University is winning the prize, then entities within the region, but you will see that there are a series of other entities, including private entities, that are in the top 10 list. Very many are in the area of infectious diseases, and probably this is not a surprise for you. But also cancer, diabetes and obesity, brain and brain-related disorders, I would say are making the top 4 from the entire list, with some other type of projects that are kind of distributed. Some other areas where a little bit less you would see, and I would have expected more based on the expertise, would be in this area of the health services. You have a very good health system, so I would have imagined that that would have been more representing, and also here in the aging and in the advanced therapies, probably your contributions would have been more than what it is reflected from this graph. So for Horizon 2020, we already had 2 calls, the calls of 2014 and 2015. The Societal Challenge 1 represents a little bit more than 13% of Denmark Horizon 2020 received funding, while in fact the Societal Challenge represents 9.7 is an optimistic, it's about 9.2% of Horizon 2020. So you will see that in fact this particular challenge, health, demographic change and well-being, is a strength from Denmark. And if you are actually correcting the amounts for the population size, you're raising the 3rd place, which will make our program committee representative extremely happy that I'm presenting this data. So a few examples of projects, for instance, the Steno-Diabetes Center, personalized prevention. Probably you know that in the past programs, prevention was not one of the focus of the health program this time around. It's not only about diagnosis and treatment, but much more about understanding disease and being able to promote and to prevent disease, to promote healthy behavior and to prevent diseases. So very interesting project on personalized prevention, so predicting who will respond to lifestyle interventions in type 2 diabetes, and most importantly, who will not. Another project, this time around the coordinator being the Aalborg University, is more for the ICT side of the program, developing affordable touchscreen for senior citizens, to active and healthy aging. These are very cute. You can find recipes for what to do in the evening or respond to very simple questions. So it's a very interactive system that they're developing. So let's move from how you have fared in the past to the 2016-2017 priorities. And if you're asking, where is health research in Horizon 2020, the answer is everywhere. This time around, we have a very simplified manner of accessing all the calls, all the topics that are available onto the participant portal. So if you have your keyword, don't just go to the Societal Challenge 1 and look for eventual calls. They are really everywhere into the program. So let's take it a little bit and look at this health research in Horizon 2020 and how the various funding mechanisms would match your eventual needs. We have the pillar on excellent science, and everyone knows the European Research Council, so the individual grants for fantastic ideas that one might have. We have the future in emerging technologies, the training grants, under Marie Skłodowska-Curie grants, and the research infrastructures. And as you might or might not know, we have about 12 research infrastructures in the area of life sciences. Many of them are underused. Nevertheless, we are trying to, in the view of our activities in the future, syndicate them, make the access to this research infrastructure much easier, and I'm going to come back to that when I'm talking about the personalized medicine. Industrial leadership. It's not only about the industry participation into the projects and into the programs. It's about the SME instrument, and I'm going to come back to that. So these are support to individual SMEs. This instrument has a derogation from the classical 3 entities from 3 different countries. A stimulation of innovation through a fast-track process. This is much more for medium companies. The Eureka, Eurostars, the Light Biotech, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the financial instruments, which are in fact loans. They are not grants, but they can be very appropriate for later stages of development or commercialization if you're getting there. And then in the area of the societal challenges, under the Societal Challenge, Health, Demographic Change and Wellbeing, you'd have the collaborative projects, the Innovative Medicine Initiative, EDCTP, and AAL2, this one being an ICT-driven type of public-public partnership. So, main research priorities for 2016 and 2017 are personalized medicine, the healthy aging, human biomonitoring, the health ICT, infectious diseases, and in particular a new financial instrument that is dedicated to them, and then maternal and child health. And in fact, I'm going to let the slides for whoever is interested, so you can have them as reference. It's not a problem. So, how is it organized? The call of 2016-2017 has in fact 21 topics, 10 open in 2016, 10 in 2017, and 1 open in both years, plus some coordination activities. And then under the SME instrument, we have open 2 topics, Inofin infectious diseases, so our financial instruments related to infectious diseases, and the birthday prize are, in this category of other types of activities, and then 2 focused areas, one on digital security and one on the Internet of Things, about €1 billion all put together. So, what would we like to get out of this investment, because while everything is fine and dandy, and typically our research programs have been about input, how much money we are throwing to a subject or another, more and more at the political level, the parliament, but the regular citizen is asking what we are getting back out of all that investment. Where are the socioeconomic outputs of these projects? And we are looking not only for the evidence that would serve for much better policy making, but also taking the lead in new growth areas. Personalized medicine is one of these areas where indeed Europe is ahead in the world, and we would like to keep that particular advance. Responding to emergencies, we have shown during the Ebola crisis that we were able to very quickly mobilize funds and actually put in place projects that have been extraordinary, immediately resulting in data or evidence that could be used. And then obviously we would like that the knowledge that is created could be exploited. So in the part of collaborative research in the previous framework program and in Horizon 2020, we have invested quite substantially. So we thought that it is the moment now to move forward and ask our colleagues from the different member states to indeed join forces and design an European personalized medicine consortium. Why that? Because a lot of the activities in the area of personalized medicine are done at the member state level. So our goal is not only to, put all our topics about understanding health, well-being, and disease, about targeting or managing diseases, and creating this portfolio in the area of personalized medicine is also about taking stock of what is done at the member state level, try to, in fact, map all those activities, identify the gaps, and also probably identify how we can move forward together. Some of the topics are quite interesting. So, for instance, this one of preventing diseases. The topic for 2017 is promoting mental health and well-being in the young. And I'm noting this particular topic because with the current refugee and migrant crisis, this particular topic can be of extreme relevance. It's not only about receiving the refugees, it's really about how are we going to deal with them in the future. And obviously the mental health and the well-being in the young and how they're going to be possibly integrated in the receiving societies are going to be extremely important. I've mentioned about socioeconomic impact, and let's be clear, we really need to have methodologies in place that will make the data comparable, and as a consequence, one of the topics again for 2017 is this development of new methods and measures for improved economic evaluation and efficiency measures in the health sector. We really need to be able to show where our investments are going and what are the results of those investments. And then, of course, when all that is said and done, we really have to do much more to implement them in our healthcare, and not only in Europe but also in the low and middle income countries, and that is really one of the important points for the Commission now. So, looking at the coordination activities, again we have quite a large number of topics where we hope that the various researchers from the different European countries will work together in order to to better, for instance, coordinate this personalized medicine research or implementing the strategic research agenda in personalized medicine. So, moving from this main priority for 2016-2017 to other very interesting topics in our work programs, I would first like to mention the European Human Biomonitoring Initiative. Probably, the amount of diesel particles that are in the air and surround us would have been, much more evident if this Human Biomonitoring Initiative would have been in place for some time. The Americans have it, and in fact, also the colleagues from Canada have a very similar initiative. So, what is this about? It is, in fact, creating a European joint program for monitoring and scientific assessment of human exposure to chemicals and the potential health impacts. So, but taking it out of the rhetorical, everything is bad in our environment kind of deal, and actually looking at designing studies that would provide the actual evidence and the actual numbers, if you wish, for all those chemicals and their potential health impact. So this we would see it as an initiative where Europe will participate, but also the member states will participate. In fact, the programs have to be developed at the national level, and it will be implemented through a joint program co-fund. It's a little bit different than the regular joint programming. It just has a common name, but it is different than the regular joint programmings in the sense that we will participate with a lot of the funding in this particular initiative, but then we will have involvement of the European agencies, such as the Environmental Agency, EMA, and so on and so forth. Infectious diseases is one of our focal points into the program. Of course, in counting your priority and the previous experience from the previous framework program, where in fact infectious diseases were where you've got the most money out of it, it might be very interesting for you. So collaborative research, these new financial instruments, I'm going to come back to them, and then also an inducement prize, global initiatives, and activities both under IMI and EDCTP and various joint programmings. We will all contribute to the agenda of the infectious diseases. So this InnoFin, I think that I have a slide a little later, but it is an initiative that we have developed together with the European Investment Bank, where in fact loans can be taken to projects that are typically, phase 2B, 3, or the commercialization, drugs, vaccines, diagnosis, even research infrastructures in the area of infectious diseases. This loan can cover half of the cost of the project. And for this particular instrument, not for the others, but for this particular instrument, if the project is successful, the applicants or those that have got this particular loan will have to repay it. Nevertheless, if the project is not successful for a very objective reason, that would be transformed in a grant. So it would be a non-reimbursable loan. We do believe that as such, because we are the guarantor on the loans, and with the help of our program committee that accepted that the part of the money comes out of the program, we would be able, in fact, to stimulate a lot of the private investment. So I'm thinking at it as attracting other funding. We already gave the first loan out. Immediately we've launched this particular initiative in July, and 2 weeks or 3 weeks thereafter we had the first loan given. It is for a small company spin-off Karolinska. It's called Kavidi. The project is 21 million euros. The loan is for 10, and it is for scale-up and commercialization of a very accurate HIV test, so viral load can be followed. It's a type of project where enough, I would say, risk can be taken. In the same talking, it was a project that was very close to commercialization, so it is suitable for a loan rather than a grant.
But did you say that it has to be very late stage, like phase 2B onwards?
Yes, it's not for preclinical, because loans, as they're given away by the European Investment Bank under this particular scheme, and I'll talk about the other schemes a little later, are not suitable for preclinical research. There you have to go for the grants. So, infectious diseases again, we go from the new concept in patient stratification and all the way to, let's say, comparing the effectiveness of existing healthcare intervention in the adult populations. And just to be I forgot that I had this slide, okay? So, sorry to repeat. There is, though, an element that I have not mentioned, that the loans can be very big. They can go from 7.5 million euros to 75 million euros. And if the loan can be 75 million euros, it means that the project can be 150, okay? Because we don't give more than 50% of the loan. So there are different models that we have seen. It can be for one product or for these very large loans. It can be, in fact, for portfolios. So if you have a portfolio where the different products have different degrees of risk, you can go actually, or a big infrastructure or something that looks like, I don't know if you're familiar with Imperial Innovation. Practically intermediaries that are taking loans but then are managing a series of small and medium enterprises and playing the winner, that also can be covered by these bigger loans. So moving to something that was not really part of our strategic research agenda up to now, it's this issue of the maternal and child health, and this time around we've decided to kickstart the process with a prize, and it's called the Birthday Prize. It calls for novel solutions to improve the outcome of facility-based deliveries, both for mother and for the child. Here, the prize was developed together with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, so they're going to also contribute to the prize, and there are some other foundations that are interested in also contributing to this initiative. For those who might be interested, it is already open, but the prize will be launched at a high-level conference that will take place the 8th of December in Brussels. The conference is titled Together for the Next Generation. And again, we are going to look at this issue linked to maternal and child health from very different perspectives, including from ethical perspectives. So if you are interested, please register to the conference. A sip of water before the global cooperation. And I'll start with EBCTP. The calls have been launched, and a lot of money is into play for EDCTP. Almost 1.4 billion euros, half coming from the member states and the Commission. In fact, the Commission contribution matches the contribution of the member states, but not project by project. Okay, we're not going to count pennies there. It's at the program level, so it facilitates putting forward all kinds of projects. So this EDCTP2 has a much broader scope than the previous initiative. It's including not only HIV, TB, and malaria, but also other neglected infectious diseases, can cover all the clinical phases and also diagnostic and delivery optimization. This was not the case in the previous program. And it has a longer duration in line with the complexity of the clinical trials in sub-Saharan Africa. I don't know if you're familiar with any of these international consortia, but in fact, European researchers are working together with researchers from around the globe in a series of international consortia. And so the rare diseases, the epigenome, the cancer genome, global genomic medicine, the GLOPID-R, which is preparedness for emerging epidemics, the Global Alliance for Chronic Diseases, and the International Initiative for Traumatic Brain Injury Research. How it works very easy. We funders are getting together and deciding that we would like to launch one of these consortia. It takes, a few years of discussion. Then the subjects and the strategic research agendas are established. Other funders are welcomed. Typically it is us and the NIH and the Canadians launching them, but then other funders are welcomed. In the IRDIRC we have 35 funders involved. And then everyone launches their own calls. They fund their own researchers, so we don't put money in a big, gigantic global pot that would call for an administrative disaster. So each of us will fund our own researchers, but there is an agreement from the get-go that the projects would collaborate amongst themselves. There will be elements of data sharing or biosample sharing, etc., etc. So here, for instance, for the rare diseases is the easiest case, if you wish. The 3 or 5 cases of one rare disease, they might go to Canada for analysis. We can do the natural history. So there is a lot of exchange based on a strategic research agenda and on working together. But money, is not mixed, so all these things can progress very rapidly. For instance, for this consortium, we have as a goal of having a diagnostic means for most rare diseases by 2020 and 200 new therapies for rare diseases by 2020. We've launched a consortium in 2011, and we are already at 147 therapies. So it is an enormous advantage working in this means where data can be shared and biosamples can be shared. And of course, you've seen all you had on the chairs, the announcements linked to the new call of IMI2. This is, how Peter and I have worked together for many years to make this particular initiative functional. It is the public-private partnership between the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations and the European Commission. Again, half and half on the basis of the program, not on each of the projects. Very interestingly, the strategic research agenda is based on a WHO priority medicine report, and this time around is open to other industries. So diagnostics, ICT, whatever, can come in and contribute on the industry side. And you will see from this new call that is not only about doing business as usual. It's really putting forward topics that would have a significant impact. So, for instance, the IMI Big Data for Better Outcomes, in translation means that you will have diagnostics and treatments that are meaningful for patients. It also means that probably other business models will have to be developed where the outcome of the therapy will be taken into account for pricing and reimbursement. Obviously, given the very poisonous discussion nowadays on Sovaldi, that would have a dramatic impact for how things are going to be done in the future. This particular topic that I've mentioned has as a subject Alzheimer's disease, but there are others that will come about. And some of my most beloved IMI projects have been led from here, from Denmark, for instance, NewMeds, which I do believe that really set up a different type of research. I don't know if everyone knows that project, which is now ended. No, it is about looking at patients with depression and schizophrenia, putting data together from 67 different clinical trials, 23,000 patients suffering from schizophrenia, to be able to stratify them, criteria of success and failure, and then go back to creating the models that would help design the next generation of interventions that would be much more helpful for these patients. For us, or at least for me, that project is an example because as a byproduct, it just happened that it was found that the clinical trials can be shorter, that you needed less patients per arm of clinical trial, all these things that have significant regulatory implications. So this is why I'm really a fan of this initiative, because it brings really the innovation to patients, and it can change the way business is done, regulation is done, etc. So I highly encourage you to participate, because unlike my program of collaborative research, Denmark does not do very well in the IMI overall, while you have a lot of strengths if you're looking at the oncoming calls or the previous call, which 4 out of 5 topics were on brain disorders. It is really a strength. So, moving from the large industry to the small industry, a word about the Sme Instrument. This Sme Instrument has been modeled by and large on the SBIR grants in the United States, with some very important differences. The first phase is just a lump sum to help companies draft a business plan and look at where is the competition in the world or in Europe. But the main difference are this phase 2, where in the Societal Challenge 1, the grants that are awarded to one single company are going to 5 million euros, which means that with the 5 million euros, you really can do biomarker validation, clinical trials, not only proof of concept, but possibly a phase 1 or a 2A, depending on your indication, or help the validation of a medical device or diagnostic means. What do we have? Also, there are also support to this instrument. So if you don't know very well what to do, we do have topics where you'd be put in contact with entrepreneurs that can help you navigate the system. And if you've surpassed that point of the Sme instrument, these are in fact all the new financial instruments. 2.8 billion euros are allocated from Horizon 2020, but the leverage effect is about 10 to 15. So the loans are given by either the European Investment Fund, so the national banks that are participating at the scheme, or the European Investment Bank. So here, in fact, you will see that for the large projects, the loans can go to up to 300 million euros. It's very interesting. The only catch under this scheme is that it's based on the first come, first served. So we do encourage a lot that if those particular loan schemes are suitable for the needs of your company, research organizations, it depends on your statutes. If you're an independent legal entity, it might be suitable even if you're not an industrial, a large industry or an SME. You can apply. The other important point that I wanted to make, in particular for those that are complaining that this Juncker plan has taken away money from Horizon 2020, is that it has been launched in June, I think, and in the first 3 months of it being launched, we in the health area have benefited from more than 180 million euros in projects that have been funded, so in loans, while our entire contribution for the entire period, it's 210 million. So advantage is obviously with us. We do have quite a number of projects in the pipeline, so please apply. So other interesting activities are going to be the valorization of research results. So basically here are brokerage activities where we put researchers in contact with VCs that might be able to take forward some of these activities. And obviously some of our international activities, they're coming to funding, not all of them every year, but this time around it's going to be the Global Alliance for Chronic Diseases. So, what next? You know, we had our Info Day in Brussels. The adoption of publication of the work program is scheduled for the 13th or 14th of October, so there is where the count will start, with the 2016 deadlines, depending on the topics, 19th of January to 16th of February of 2016, and then 13th of April 2016. The Sme instrument has multiple cut-off dates throughout the year, and the investment are really ad hoc. So you come and they're taken care of. So thank you for your attention, and I'm ready for questions.
Thanks, Ruxandra. Questions or complaints? Please.
If it's a small company, how would you approach getting into controlling? If you're a small company, how would you approach getting into a consulting?
Did everyone hear it?
Yes.
Okay, if you're a small company, an SME, how would you approach getting into a bigger consortium?
You have your national contact points and the program committee members who can help you with the practicalities. We also have coordination activities. We used to have a project that was called Fit for Health, basically ensuring a kind of brokerage. So you put your name onto the website and you see the others that are interested in the same subject. It's very nice to network among yourselves or go to the meetings. And if you really have an idea, an independent idea, and you think that you can do it alone, or you can, you can be in the lead of the project, you can look at this SME instrument, which is very interesting for small companies. Yeah.
Can I ask one question? With regard to timelines, and if you hand in a project and you get your feedback on the threshold, what we experienced last time was it was a bit difficult because we got the answers so late that we didn't get the chance to reapply. So would you have had any learnings from the 2014-2015 program in that respect, in terms of, so you would be able to reapply from the learnings you would have for the first application?
You're talking about the SME instrument.
The SME program, where you as a smaller entity, you need to make sure that you meet the deadlines, but when you get your partners and they get feedback from the EU too late, it's too late to actually reapply.
So for the 2014 and 2015 SME instrument, we have yet another open date, and that was debated a lot in the program committee. It's going to be in 2017, and it is to address these cases where feedback was too late, or entities applied for a phase 1, okay? They've completed successfully their phase 1, but obviously the topic is no more open into the program. So after a lot of discussion, we decided to open a specific date in 2017 for those cases. Now, I do also have a comment. There are very many applications for the phase 1, so there will be a lot of companies that have developed a business plan that no matter how much we would like to fund them, it's not going to be possible. So there are several routes. One is to really use your business plan and try the other mechanisms, the VCs, or if you're in the later stages, probably go for the loan instruments. Now we are going to launch very soon also a collaboration with the colleagues from the cohesion funds. There will be probably a number of the national authorities that would like to take the projects that have been very successfully evaluated by us at the Commission, but unfortunately, because we didn't have enough money, we were not able to fund. And those will be referred. It is going to be called the Seal of Excellence. So they will be reviewed and they will have a positive outcome. But unfortunately, we have a very limited amount of money. Those might go to the national authorities and they might fund them. I think that.
Yes, sorry, thanks. I was just wondering, is there any exclusive criteria when you get below, such as all partners have to provide a certain percentage, or can one partner provide everything?
If one partner provides everything, you don't need the partners.
Is there a criteria of such that you can be alone, or you need to have partners, or they have to provide something?
So for the collaborative projects, the rule is that each project has to have at least 3 partners from 3 European countries or associated countries, and then you can have on the top of these 3 partners and anyone else from anywhere in the world. For the SME instrument or for the financial instruments, it can be one single entity. But of course, if it is a clinical trial, one might imagine that you have a contract research organization that will do your manufacturing or somehow, collaborate. So it truly depends on the scheme.
Please.
I have a question about personalized medicine and the strategy you're trying to implement at the European level. And the point is, I'm an MD by background, just for you to know. The point is that personalized medicine means you get a lot of additional information about each single individual. And then the idea is, of course, that you would like to act differently based on that information than you otherwise would. So the big challenge is really how to know whether this is a benefit or not, to change your actions based on the individual information. And that would require, if you follow the usual kind of building up evidence for health, very large-scale trials. It's multiplying the power, the statistical power needed to be sure that the change in action based on the personal information is actually helpful. And if I remember right, there was not much about this in this whole, I saw the draft. So I think that very important, if you really would like to see Europe promoting personalized medicine, it should incorporate the tools to develop the evidence that actually helps to redirect actions based on personalized information.
So I completely agree with you, and this is why we have undertaken a number of actions. First, of course, this is not going to be done alone. It's going to be done together with the member states. And we are now in the final process of mapping the activities that are ongoing at the level of each of the member states in this area of personalized medicine. I think that would be a very, very useful exercise, not only for us to identify what would be the next steps, but also for the member states that might want to exchange best practices or extend some types of interventions that have been already implemented. Secondly, not only the member states or in our program, but also in IMI, we would really like to embark health economists and really go much more impact of these new interventions. And that is something that we utterly lack. Much more has to be done in this area. If you have good suggestions of how to do it and what are the actual gaps, we will be organizing a series of workshops in the next 6 months with a goal of having a large conference on personalized medicine under this European initiative with the member states, probably April, May, June, somewhere there. It will depend on the room that we find. And there all these things will be discussed and an agenda for the European personalized medicine platform will be developed. In this context also, I promise that I'm going to come back to it, and I didn't. We are trying to also embark the research infrastructures in Europe, because we will not be able to actually have meaningful economic models or be able to implement if we don't have Elixir talking to BBMRI, talking to all these research infrastructures that up to now operated each and every one separately. So we will try to help them syndicate and actually offer to the researchers, but then to the clinicians, this unique personalized medicine platform in Europe.
More questions? Please.
Oh. I have a question relating to the oversubscription that you have seen in at least some of the SC1 calls. I represent a Danish hearing aid company who would like to do some hearing care projects, and we got some pretty good results in terms of getting ratings for our proposals this year, but they didn't get funded because success rates were around 3%. And we have been thinking about discussing internally whether we actually have a chance coming within a field, hearing care research, which is much smaller than some of the fields that we are competing with. And my question is basically whether there are some unwritten priorities in terms of which type of research is getting the funding in these calls where perhaps 3, 4, 5 projects are getting funded out of perhaps 200.
Perhaps 600. You're absolutely right. As at the first calls of the European Research Council, where they received 8,000 proposals for a fraction of the money, in Horizon 2020, because we have gone towards very broad subjects that are looking at issues from very different perspectives, indeed the application rate increased. It's not only that, okay, the quality of the proposals, because they are so broad, increased dramatically. So we did have topics where we were able to fund only the proposals with a score of 15. Actually, in the call of 2014, we had one case where we could fund 9 proposals with a score of 15, and we had 5 on the reserve list, so we had to really scramble to find the money to actually fund all the proposals with a score of 15. It was in the area of understanding disease, and not one project was identical or in the same area with the other. I think that from that perspective, there is no hidden agenda. The perspective of how do you approach the subject can be very, very different from each other. Another problem that we faced, at least in 2014 and 2015, is that the national authorities in many countries cut the funding for research and said to their researchers, go to Europe. Of course, it all went to Europe, but in the situation of crisis. We hope, well, I don't know if that will happen in 2016, 2017, that some of the national funding will be restored, because that would alleviate some of the pressure, at least in the smaller projects that can be done at the national level. If not, I think that if you really, really want to see how the evaluations are done and increase your chance of success, because you see it firsthand, I would encourage you to register as an expert into your area of expertise in our database. Come at Brussels in 1 year, or one call where you decide not to apply, and see how the evaluations are done. See how the evaluation panels are very multidisciplinary, and sometimes a project that sounds excellent from the basic research point of view might have a dramatic flaw on, I don't know, toxicology, and that would be pointed out by a different expert. So actually looking at this interaction might be very helpful.
Okay. Oh, the question disappeared. Final question, comment? So you want to elaborate why Aarhus was down on the list in success rate?
We'll take up that later.
Okay. Okay.
And our program committee member is here in the room.
In case you don't know me, I'm the Danish representative in the program committee. So my name is Kip Krøger, and I work for Danish Agency for Science, Technology, Innovation, Forsknings og Innovationsstyrelsen. And I know a number of you, and please come up and talk to me while we have some wine, with or without wine. And I can maybe give you some pointers too. But I think thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
If I can just ask a last question. Now I have the microphone. I sense that from this room, maybe not all are researchers from university. And I know that a number of researchers that represent come from universities and have had this feeling that maybe with Horizon 2020, the program, the health program, is also changing, and that it is becoming maybe less of a research program and more of an innovation program. So how do you see, how would you respond to that? I think one of the ways it's been put is that the universities are wooing Horizon 2020, but will Horizon 2020 respond to their wooing?
I think that's a very important question, and this is why on one of my slides I actually had all the instruments under the Horizon 2020, because each of the instruments might address some of the needs. Of course, a lot of the basic research, we expect that it's going to be put forward not to our societal challenge, but to the European Research Council or to individual type of grants, for instance, Marie Curie training grants, etc. Because it's much more appropriate. Because we now have both the research and the innovation side, in some of the branches, if you wish, and some of the funding mechanisms, we are not going to be able to cater to everyone. So I think that if I'm looking at the overall success of the health program, it is probably one of the most successful in Horizon 2020, and we would like to keep it like that. I would like to see applications in the health area everywhere in the program. And honestly, we are looking at the results in all the different funding mechanisms, and you know that now in the ERC they are approaching 25% of the total funding. So what I advise you is to not look at each instrument separately, because there, you know, in some we will have almost exclusively academic investigators, and in some almost exclusively industry. You know, the SME instrument is one of that good example. But look at the results overall.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ruxandra, and thanks for taking the time to come here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Give Ruxandra a hand again. And we offer you a glass of wine here, and over this glass of wine, please don't be shy. Thank you.
Thanks.
Skal vi bare godt her?